Okay, Chair, you are now live.
Oh, thank you. Well, welcome to the meeting on this lovely second day of spring. One note, the Halifax Region Municipality, of course, is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and territorial lands of the Mi'kmaq people. And the municipality acknowledges, there we go. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed on the territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So let's begin with approval of minutes. Are there any errors or omissions that anyone has noted in the minutes? Okay, none so being, can I have a motion to approve and a seconder, please?
I didn't meeting or to go through. I just want to point out a little thing in the minutes. My name is Azuka.
Sure.
Yes, but I think it's more of the spelling of your name. I think you have been spelled as Brian and then as Brain in some instances.
That has happened on more committees I said.
Yeah, that shows that you are very
the
brainy.
Library board,
and
it came out as Brain McDonald.
And you are very brainy. That's why you are very intelligent.
But it became a running joke. Seriously, yeah.
So it's just that's the only thing. I think I saw it in 4 places that Brian McDonald be nominated chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee. Then the next 4 lines or 5 lines. I think that's the only thing I noticed.
Yeah, not the first time.
Well, it's sometimes it's even the computer that does it. Sometimes when you type, the computer changes it for you.
Mine does it constantly. Thank you.
Okay.
With that correction, are there any other errors or omissions? Okay, can I have a motion to approve, please?
David Atchison, I move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Thank you, David. And a seconder?
Azuka, I second it.
You'll second it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we'll declare that motion carried. You've received the order of business. Are there any additions or deletions at this point in time?
Yes, I'm asking, can somebody, through your request, can somebody add something to the agenda? Is that okay? Okay. Yes, the little thing I want to ask, yes, last month we passed our schedule for the year. But after that, I began to think about it. And I said, is it not possible for us, maybe once in a year, we decide to hold our meeting in person so that we also get to know each other and get to meet each other in person rather than holding all our meetings online. It just occurred to me, we do it in the office, we do remote work, but rather 2 times in a year, we have an event that brings all of us together so that we get to see each other.
Personally, I think it's a great idea, and I'm on some organizations that are slowly weaning themselves from Zoom, but how does the rest of the committee feel?
Okay, that's what I just want to ask for us to discuss. Maybe that's.
Yeah, this is Patrick. I would certainly be in favor of adding that item to today's agenda.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean.
A little later.
We'll add that on. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay. Excuse me. I need a motion to approve this order of business.
Lois, I move that we add this item to today's agenda.
Oh, thank you. And a seconder?
this is Patrick. I'll second that.
Thank you, Patrick. And we need a motion to approve the entire order of business.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Seconded as amended. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So we're moving forward with one addition under added items. Thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor? Yeah, we're getting there.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll consider that moved. On my notes here, it says there's no business arising out of the minutes. And of course, we then come to the call for declaration of interests. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare at this point?
None from me.
No one is in any conflict? That makes that straightforward. Also, for consideration of deferred business, the note I have here is there is none. And I call now, I'm asking our legislative assistant if there's any correspondence received by the clerk's office.
There has been no correspondence, petitions, or presentation received in the clerk's office, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you, Dorothy. So that eliminates petitions as well. Eliminates presentations. We're moving through this agenda at rocket speed. Information items brought forward indicates none again. But we do have some staff reports. 9.1, case H00547, request to include 6032 to 6034 Charles Street to the Registry of Heritage Properties for the Halifax Region Municipality. And we defer to a staff member, Elizabeth Cushing, who is a planner for this.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Get set up here. Right, are there any issues viewing my screen?
Oh, I'm good.
Perfect. All right, so good afternoon, Chair and members of the Heritage Advisory Committee. My name is Elizabeth Cushing, and I'll be presenting case H00547, the Heritage Registration Application for 6032 to 34 Charles Street in Halifax. In June 2022, a property owner-initiated application was submitted to consider the inclusion of the subject property in the Registry of Heritage Property for HRM. 6032-34 Charles Street is situated on the south side of Charles Street in the block bound by Clifton and Roby Streets. The Heritage Advisory Committee is asked to score the subject property on the following criteria that you see here on the screen. HAC will have time to deliberate a score following my presentation on each category.
Elizabeth, sorry,
Yes.
I'm just wondering, the only thing that I see is it's not the presentation. The presentation of the presentation. I'm just seeing the first slide.
Yes, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't moved through.
Okay.
Oh, it jumps.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if you could put it in the presentation mode for us.
I did for some reason. I'm not sure why that isn't. Can you see it changing now?
We're just seeing all of the slides on the left-hand side.
I think you can do it. I think it's is it Control F5 or something? It comes. Oh, it's still.
You have two monitors, Elizabeth?
I don't. No. Carter,
Oh.
are you able to?
Elizabeth, I can share the presentation for you if that works
Yeah.
better. Okay,
Sure.
just give me 1 second.
Sounds good. Sorry about that, everyone. Aaron, is that why your hand is up?
That is, I was just going to give you some advice, but I think Dorothy's got you sorted there.
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. Now we can read the text.
Can
Thank you.
everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Great. All right, so apologies again, everyone. So we'll start from, or we can go to the next slide, please, Dorothy. Perfect. Thank you. So the Heritage Advisory Committee is asked to score the subject property on the following criteria. HAC will have time to deliberate a score following my presentation for each category. Next slide, please. So the first evaluation criteria is age. The subject property was originally Lot 6 in the plan of the subdivision of the Wooddale Field. No structures are depicted in Hopkins' 1878 City Atlas, and Charles Street did not yet extend past Roby Street at that time. So the block of Charles Street between Clifton and Roby Streets are identified as being vacant in McAlpine's 1897 to 98 city directory. But by Gode's 1911 fire insurance plan, 3 structures and an outbuilding had been constructed at the corner of Clifton and Charles Street, and the subject property is identified as being 60 Charles Street. The first identification of 60 Charles Street in McAlpine City Directory is in 1898 to 1899, which lists John H. Blakely, who was a clerk, as occupying the property. So Blakely owned a grocery store on Barrington Street, and he lived at the property until 1902. So in 1897, Blakely had mortgaged Lot 6 of Wooddale Field from Walter Thompson. He had already purchased the neighboring lots the year prior. So Blakely and a farmer from the county of Hants, James A. Ross, had a partnership under the firm Blakely and Ross. In 1898, as a term of their partnership agreement, all of their real estate was transferred to the partnership. That following year, they deeded the neighboring property to James' mother, named Caroline, and James is listed as occupying a building on this lot by the 1899 to 1900 city directory. So this would be present day 6038 Charles Street. Next slide, please. Thank you. With the construction date of circa 1898, the subject property at the time of writing is 125 years old, and staff recommend a score of 13 points for age.
That sounds reasonable.
David Atchison, I would support a score of 13 for age.
This is Patrick. I would as well.
Affirmative.
Zukar, I support it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think we're good. We can.
We're good. Okay, moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you. The second evaluation criteria is architectural importance. The subject property was constructed in the Halifax box style, characterized by a flat roof, 2-story massing, 2-story bay window on one side with the doorway on the other, and varied decoration and ornament. Design elements tend to borrow from the Second Empire, Queen Anne, and Italianate styles, and the overall simplicity of the Halifax design Halifax box design allowed construction firms to build this style cheaply and quickly. So although the Halifax box style can be found throughout peninsular Halifax, this style of home is representative of turn of the 20th century local vernacular architecture and contributes to the special architectural style of Halifax. Next slide, please. So as a representative example of the Halifax box style, staff recommend a score of 16 to 20.
I'd say personally, it's on the high end of that towards 20 because it is an excellent example of that particular era.
Yeah, I agree.
Elizabeth, can you just go back to the picture for a second, please?
Thanks,
Is
Dorothy.
that is that wood shingle? I'm just trying to say, is that still wood shingles? It's still got original materials on it?
Yes.
Okay,
We'll
thanks.
discuss
Okay.
that. Sorry, we'll discuss that, Councillor, a little bit later
All
on
right.
for integrity, but for the most part, yeah, it is wood shingles and minimal changes.
I was looking at the architecture. I want to make sure the materials were respected and stuff. Yeah, it looks great. I'd give it a high end score as well.
As would I, and this is Lois speaking.
Yes, I give it a high score to Zukar here.
We have general agreement on that?
Absolutely.
Good.
So is that an 18 or 19 or 20? I give it a 20. I give it a 20.
I started at 20, so no one else throwed a number.
I concur with 20.
Yeah, 20 is fine.
I do as well.
Agree. This is Halifax iconic building. So yeah, 20.
Perfect. Thank you. So the architect or builder of 6032-34 Charles Street was not identified during historical research, so staff must recommend a score of 0.
Yeah. Just another box house. Yeah. I agree with that.
I do not believe in a 0. I believe this should be at least a 1 if it's still significantly standing and the architecture is great. I don't discount. I never discount a property at 0 unless it's been demolished. I'd give it at least a 1.
Yes, yes. Just like that, the human being should not be counted as 0 unless the person is, even if he's there, the name is still there. Yeah.
So do we agree on a 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's number 1. Good.
Great, thank you. Valuation criteria 4A is architectural merit for construction type. 603234 Charles Street is a 2-story building, likely of balloon construction with a rectangular plan. It stands on a coursed rubble stone foundation mixed with large granite blocks, as you can see from the photo on the screen. The foundation has been partially faced with concrete and brick towards the north elevation. So balloon framing was the preferred method of construction from the late 19th to early 20th century. The method allowed for buildings to be constructed quickly and used dimensional lumber held together by nails. Balloon framing is rarely used today, but it did influence contemporary platform construction. So balloon framing, while common for its time, was replaced by platform framing from the 1930s onwards and is growing increasingly less common in present-day Halifax. As such, staff recommend a score between 1 to 3 points.
You're going to have to explain to me, Elizabeth, the expression of balloon framing. I'm not familiar with that expression.
Councillor, can you clarify that?
What is balloon framing? Well, I'm just trying to get a picture what that is.
My understanding of balloon framing is that rather than using, say, 10-foot 2x4s to build a platform on a platform, they built the whole wall with one board. So let's say the front of your building is 20 feet tall. You had one 2x4, or maybe it was 2.5 by 6 or whatnot, and that goes the whole height. So it is sort of like stick construction, but it was called balloon framing from my recollection because people, not my recollection, what I've heard, because people said that it came together so fast, it was like blowing up a balloon.
Okay. I'll give it at least a 3 then.
Oh, yeah. How rare are those granite block foundations now?
We do typically, well, I'll say thank you, David, for clarifying that. Granite is typically incorporated into rubble stone foundations, but you usually see them kind of at the corner of the building, and it's not very often that you see it kind of mixed in the middle of the structure like this.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I grew up in a 1904 home, and was part of our foundation as well. That's why I asked. Yeah.
Lovely.
So numbers, how do people feel we should use a number for 4A?
I'll give it at least a 3.
Anyone else?
I'm happy with a 3.
I'm good with 3, but I mean, just checking, just polling the committee.
3 is good.
3 is good, okay.
Yeah, this is Patrick. I'm happy with the 3.
Great, thank you. The evaluation criteria for, able to go.
Excuse me.
So Dorothy, we have to go back a little bit, please. There we go. The valuation criteria for B is architectural merit for style. 603234 Charles Street provides a somewhat rare example of the Halifax box style, as it has a high level of integrity and an additional 2-story bay window on the east elevation that's embellished with decorative corbels and brackets consistent with the front elevation. The character-defining elements include the 2-story Halifax box-style house with flat roof and rubble stone and granite foundation, 2-story bay window with brackets and corbel detailing and a conical roof with cresting on the north elevation, 2-story bay window with brackets and corbel detailing and flat roof on the east elevation, wood glazed entrances surrounded by wood piers, brackets, and entablature with transom, and a 2nd-story window with label trim on the north elevation. Next slide, please. So as a somewhat rare example of the Halifax box style, staff recommend a score of 1 to 3.
How does the committee feel?
Well, I give it a 3, but I'm surprised it doesn't get, I guess you're saying it's somewhat rare, so it's more frequently done. I'm just trying to say we have enough examples elsewhere, but how many of those other properties of similar design and architect merit have already been registered? That's my question. So if we don't have too many of them registered, then I would give it a higher score than 3.
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, the property is within 250 meters of 2 recently registered Halifax box style houses. One is 5812, 5814 North Street and 2539 Agricola Street. So we do have those examples. Those are similar in architectural style and age, but they don't necessarily contain the high level of architectural integrity that we see in this property.
Okay, I'll give this one at least a 3 then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 3.
I'm fine with the 3. If anyone prefers 4 to 6, I think I'll be comfortable with that as well. It is rather rare.
Happy with a 3. I don't know if I'd go too much higher than that.
Okay.
I agree with a 3,
Okay.
Lois.
3 is good.
Okay, then we're going with the 3 and moving forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the 5th evaluation criteria is the property's architectural integrity. The subject property has a strong level of architectural integrity. Although no historical photographs were discovered during historical research, there are some minor modifications that are evident based on visual inspection. Most windows have been replaced. The rubble stone and granite block foundation, as I mentioned, has been partially faced with either concrete or stretcher brick. Basement window has been filled with glass blocks. An addition was constructed to the rear, as visible in the left picture there. However, this isn't overly visible from the public realm. The main entrance was modified into 2 individual entrances when the house was converted into flats. This happened around the 40s, 50s. The main entrance stairs are also not original. Next slide, please. So as mentioned previously, the Halifax box style can be found throughout Peninsular Halifax. However, the level of integrity of the remaining Halifax box style houses, especially around this block of Charles Street, vary significantly. So 6032-34 Charles Street provides a strong example of the style with relatively minor modifications. So overall, the exterior alterations of the structure are minimal, and as such, staff recommend a score of 11 to 15 points for architectural integrity.
And any input from the committee?
Yes, I have a question, Lois. I'm just wondering if we know when the double entrance was constructed or when the addition was added.
Through you, Chair, I believe the entrances were modified mid-19th century, so 40s to 60s, I think is the range that we have there. The addition, I think, is relatively new, potentially from the 80s. I believe it was just constructed before the current property owner purchased the property.
Thank you. Certainly the modifications do not take away from it, and the change to the double entrance, the detailing was perfectly continued.
Yes, I was wondering if that was an add-on or had been built that way. It looks so original.
Very sympathetically done.
This is Patrick. I was going to say this is very sympathetic. I wonder also, and this is probably not an issue in terms of its integrity, but there was evidence, I think on slide 10, of some quite serious repair works to the wall. And then probably that's just, do a better paint job and you won't even be able to see it. But sorry, on slide 10?
This is slide 10. I'm not sure which one.
Sorry, I'm looking at slide 8.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah. Yep.
This one, okay.
I don't know if anyone else can see it. It looks like under the chimney is quite a repair. And I'm just wondering if we have any information about what the nature of that was.
My guess, the flashing around the chimney probably was bad and it ran down and rotted out the shingles in that area. That'd be my guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it has that look.
something that shows up only in color.
Yeah, and as I said, the next time they do a paint job, and it probably can be concealed. So I was just curious. Thank you.
Dorothy, are you able to go back? I think we're on slide 13.
Mhm.
There we go.
Well, so should we lean towards maybe a 14 or a 15 for the largely unchanged here?
I'll be satisfied with 13 or 14. Can you go back one slide to the double door in the front again?
Yeah.
See, I see the back porch and the upper deck. I can see that. That's simplistic. New windows in the back. I'm just kind of curious that the top piece of the doorway. I wonder if that's still the original top piece, and instead of having one door with large side lights, just one of them took the side lights out and just put a double door in. I must admit that if that's not the original topping of the doorway, they did a nice job of recreating it with the rest of the building.
Yeah.
I would suspect it is. I
Yeah,
would
so
suspect it looks so much like the bay window.
yeah, so I give it a high score just because of what they did with that, with the door and stuff. It just, I don't give it a perfect score, but the door does change the look of it. So
Elizabeth,
I give it a 14.
13 or 14. 13 or 14.
Yeah, I'm hearing 14 mainly. Anyone else?
I just have a quick question for Elizabeth.
Sure.
Did your research indicate what the original steps were made of? Were they always a wood step, or were they ever stone steps or anything like that?
Through you, Chair. Unfortunately, we didn't find any historical photos of the property, but yes, it would probably be fair to say that it was likely wood, but we don't have any documentation to confirm that.
Okay.
Could you go back to the steps for a second, the picture of them? Okay, yeah. Yeah, because I don't think there'll be stone or concrete, because they would have, see, they don't appear to be in the right of way of the sidewalk. So yeah, so okay, all right.
So we're looking at 14. Is everyone in agreement on that?
Aye.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
14,
it's fair
14 it
enough.
is.
Yes,
So move forward with 14.
Perfect, thank you. So the sixth and final evaluation criteria is the property's relationship to the surrounding area. The block of Charles Street between Clifton and Roby Streets is a relatively contiguous stretch of houses of the same style and age. 6032-34 Charles Street has visual and historical connections to the neighboring properties at 6038 and 6040 Charles Street, which were built around the same time. So the subject property and 6038 Charles Street in particular have strong historical connections, as the structures were again built around the same time. Also 6038 was occupied by Blakely's business partner, James Ross. So both structures display a similar style and similar woodwork detailing. Next slide, please. So for its visual and historical relationship with the neighboring late 19th to early 20th residential buildings, which are of a similar style, especially 6038 Charles Street, staff recommend a score of 6 to 10 points.
There, I can see a picture of the steps in correlation of the neighbor's step. See how the other neighbor's step comes almost out to the sidewalk because of the pitch and angle of it and handrail. So they still 4 steps, but they extended it out a little further. They must have a larger landing on the top, whereas this set of steps does not have a large landing on the top step on the top rail. So that's just curious why. Yeah, now I can see why the steps are not ornate, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, it certainly fits in the neighborhood. There's no question.
Yeah, oh, it does. I give it at least an 8 or 9. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm good with 9. Anyone else?
Good with 9.
9 be fine.
9, we're good. Anyone else?
I agree.
Okay.
9, yeah.
We'll go with a 9 then.
Great, thank you. So should the subject property score 50 or more points on evaluation, staff advise the committee to proceed in making the following 2 recommendations to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so there's a motion that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that Halifax Council set a date for a heritage meeting to consider the inclusion of this property in the Registry of Heritage Property for HRM, and approve the request for 6032, 6034 Charles Street, Halifax, and the Registry of Heritage Property for HRM, as shown in map 1 with the staff report of this date as a municipal heritage property under the Heritage Property Act. We have someone to move that, please.
I'm happy to move that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. A seconder?
Yes, Azuka.
Thank you very much. And call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, the motion carried.
Yes.
Okay. We have a case H00549, and it's a request to include 2096 Creighton Street, Halifax, and the Registry of Heritage Property for HRM. And I'll defer to staff member Carter Beaupre McPhee for this.
Thank you very much. It does appear that the host of this meeting has disabled participant screen sharing, so perhaps we can get that fixed.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Dorothy, are you perhaps?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure it out. Just 1 second. Sorry.
Sure. No worries. Thank you.
What was the final score on the last one? Just trying to remember.
Was that? Sorry, I missed that.
What was the final score on the?
No, no one said. I wasn't keeping count.
Someone was keeping the tally, so.
Yeah. And once Dorothy gets this going, we can ask her.
There we go.
I don't have it yet. Oh, there we go. Oh, got it. Great.
Before we start, can we get clarification what the score was in the last
Yes,
one?
we will. Dorothy, do we have a final score on the last property we approved?
Yes, the score is 63.
63. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And would the chair mind just confirming for me that you can see the presentation just fine?
I can see it. Thank you.
Great,
Anyone
thank
else
you
have any
very
problem with it? I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon to the chair and members of the Heritage Advisory Committee. Staff are pleased to bring before the committee case H00549, the heritage registration application for 2096 Creighton Street in Halifax. So in July of 2022, an application was made by the property owner to consider the inclusion of 2096 Creighton Street, shown here, in the Registry of Heritage Property for the Halifax Regional Municipality. 2096 Creighton Street is located in the Crichton's Field neighborhood on the western side of Creighton Street, between the intersections with Falkland Street and Cornwallis Street, which is soon to be renamed Nora Bernard Street. The Heritage Advisory Committee is asked to score the subject property on the registration evaluation criteria before you. And as per routine, I will present a summary of staff's findings for each of the criteria, pausing after each one to allow HAC time to deliberate. The first evaluation criterion is age. Construction of the subject dwelling was completed in 1849. This age is sourced from the mortgage history of the original owner, William John Robertson. The subject dwelling is one of two homes built by William John Robertson on lot number 2, the other being the former 38 Crichton Street, which has since been demolished and replaced by 2098 Crichton Street. A series of mortgages taken out by Mr. Robertson and his wife start out not mentioning any dwellings at all, and then mention the presence explicitly of a single dwelling, and then later of dwellings plural, which when combined with the dates of said mortgages indicates that the first dwelling was constructed in 1849 and the second dwelling was constructed in 1862. Then when we cross-reference with historic maps, we can see that the former 38 Crichton Street dwelling was the larger of the two residences, and city directories also show it being the primary residence of the Robertsons. So it's reasonable to suggest that the larger 1862 mortgage of £250 was used to construct 38 Crichton Street, while the smaller 1849 mortgage of only £100 was used to construct the more modest 36 Crichton Street, the subject property in this case, placing the most likely construction date for the subject property at, again, 1849. So based on this construction date of 1849, staff recommend a score of 16 points for age.
Any input from the committee?
It's simple enough, affirmative.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm happy. So we're agreeing that 16 is a good number for that. Thank you.
So the second evaluation criterion is historical importance for historical relationships. We will begin with William John Robertson, who was born in Nova Scotia in either 1812 or 1816. He worked as a carpenter, house builder, and architect throughout his life. He constructed 36 Crichton Street, the subject property, in 1849, and the neighboring 38 Crichton Street, which is demolished, in 1862. It's probable that he built other homes in the surrounding area or elsewhere in Halifax, given his career, but his work is undocumented and predates existing historic building permits. He married Elizabeth Sarah Street, known as Eliza, in 1835, and together they had 6 sons and 2 daughters. The couple were notably commemorated in an 1885 newspaper article for their golden 50th wedding anniversary, which was a rare occurrence for the time. Robertson rented the subject dwelling to all manner of middle and working class tenants, including carpenters, marine engineers, and plumbers, among others. William John Robertson died in 1890 and willed all his property to his children, who continued to rent out the subject dwelling to various tenants following his death. Next, we have Thomas Edward Everett, who was born in 1832 in St. John, New Brunswick. He moved to Halifax and married Sarah E. Thompson in 1865, and they had 1 son. He is one of the earliest and most notable tenants of the subject property, as he and his brother Henry L. Everett founded Everett Bros Hats, Caps, and Furs. Their shop, located initially at 191 Hollis Street, opposite Province House, sold imported hats in all styles and materials, and also manufactured silk hats on site. In 1867, the firm relocated to 100 Granville Street, which is opposite Province House from the other side. Eventually, Thomas's brother Henry exited the firm and moved to St. John, New Brunswick, and the firm was renamed T.E. Everett & Co. Thomas commissioned the construction of a home at 5 Bower Street, which is now 2013 Bower Street, moving in 1872, and he died in 1919. And lastly, we have Hal Forbes. Hal Forbes was born in Summerside, PEI in 1955. A costume studies major at Dalhousie, he graduated in 1982 and worked up the ranks behind the scenes at the Neptune Theatre. He got his start in home renovation and restoration when he purchased his first home, 2031 Crichton Street, shown in orange before you, in 1984. In 1990, he purchased the subject property, restoring it, and later selling it in 2008. Forbes bought and restored homes throughout Halifax's North End and established a heritage carpentry shop on Goddington Street, where he and his team of carpenters produced all manner of decorative architectural elements. Forbes also notably spent 4 years working and traveling as Canadian singer Rita McNeil's costume designer and personal assistant. His prolific restoration and heritage carpentry work has made a very significant and lasting impact on the visual identity and regeneration of Halifax's North End. Hal Forbes passed in 2018 and is remembered as a figure of Halifax's LGBTQ+ heritage for his artistic talent and his numerous contributions to the built environment. Owing to the property's connections with locally significant persons, such as William J. Robertson, Thomas E. Everett, and Hal B. Forbes, and its very long history as prototypical working-class housing characteristic of the Crichton's Field subdivision, staff recommend a score between 6 and 10 points.
Certainly has an interesting history, certainly as owners. I would tend towards the high end personally of that for 10.
I would agree with 10.
So would
Affirmative.
I.
Yeah,
Affirmative.
I would too.
Okay, we'll go forward with a 10. Thank you.
The third evaluation criterion is for significance of architect or builder. The architect or builder responsible for the construction of the subject dwelling is its original owner, William John Robertson, whom we have already discussed at length. He is known to have built 36 and 38 Crichton Street, and mortgage records suggest he may have also built a home on a plot of land he owned, known as Lot Number 5, letter C, in the north suburb, which has since been demolished. It's highly likely, given his profession, that he also designed and built homes commissioned by other property owners in the surrounding area or elsewhere in Halifax, though, as mentioned, his work does predate historic building permits and cannot be easily confirmed. It is also notable that the subject property was restored sometime between 1990 and 2008 by the heritage carpenter Hal B. Forbes, whose prolific restoration work can be found throughout Halifax's North End. The architect and builder William John Robertson and the heritage carpenter Hal B. Forbes are of local significance, and as such, staff recommend a score between 1 and 3 points.
Well, 3 sounds reasonable.
Concur.
Same here.
Anyone else?
Agreed.
I agree as well.
Significance is going to have a very long tail, thanks to the carpenter, heritage carpenter.
That's right. Okay, move forward with 3 on that. Thank you.
Evaluation criterion 4A is architectural merit for construction type. 2096 Crichton Street is a 1.5-story building of timber frame construction with a rectangular plan. Timber frame construction predates dimensional lumber and employs wooden joinery techniques such as mortise and tenon to secure large, i.e. greater than 6-inch by 6-inch timbers, rather than using nails or other metal hardware. The property owner has provided evidence, shown here, of this traditional timber frame construction with a clearly visible mortise and tenon joint in a large wooden beam. The foundation has been parged with cement, but based on the construction date of 1849, the house is almost certainly built atop a coursed rubble stone foundation. Timber frame construction became less popular through the mid to late 1800s as the newer and cheaper balloon framing technique largely replaced it. For this reason, traditional timber frame construction is very rare today, and as such, staff recommend a score between 7 and 10 points.
Any input from the committee?
Lowest speaking, I think the upper end, a 9 or a 10, we're getting back to a structure built in the early to, well, the mid 1800s.
Yeah, pre-Confederation.
Yeah.
I'm good with a 10. Anyone else?
I would concur with that.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. 10.
Okay. We seem to have agreement on a 10.
Yeah.
Thank you. Evaluation criterion 4B is architectural merit for style. 2096 Crichton Street is an example of the Scottish vernacular style. The basic form of the home, 1.5 stories tall with a steeply pitched gable roof and asymmetrical facade, is a vernacular form known as the half house. This is a particularly well-ornamented example of an otherwise modest form and style. The distinct Scottish influence can be found in the 5-sided hipped roof dormer, also called a Scottish dormer, which is commonly employed in vernacular homes in Nova Scotia. The full list of character defining elements is provided in the staff report. However, some of the most notable details include the aforementioned Scottish dormer, the front entrance with transom and side lights framed by pilasters and entablature, and the pair of 6/6 single-hung wood frame front windows with their bracketed hood moldings. Overall, the subject dwelling with its half-house form and Scottish vernacular style is moderately rare, and staff recommend a score between 4 and 6 points.
There's not too many like it in the city, I know, but I'd go with 6.
I would agree with the chair.
Okay, I agree too.
Anyone else?
Affirmative.
Sounds good.
We're going with a 6 on that.
The fifth evaluation criterion is the property's architectural integrity. 2096 Crichton Street retains its original rectangular layout, and nearly all the character-defining elements of the subject dwelling remain present to this day. The small structure to the rear of the home is not an addition, but instead a shed, and there are very few changes to the dwelling's exterior. The two notable changes include the large rear shed dormer pictured here with its 3 windows, which was added sometime between 1921 and 1962. It employs the same materiality as the original home and remains completely obscured from the front elevation, thus complementing the original structure and not significantly detracting from the heritage integrity. Secondly, the original foundation, which has been parged with cement. Overall, the subject dwelling remains largely unchanged, and as such, staff recommend a score of between 11 and 15 points.
Certainly with the street view, it certainly seems unchanged. It's a step back in time. Any suggestions from the committee?
Look back on the street view again, please. Yes, okay. Okay, yeah.
A number suggested?
I am suggesting 13.
Okay, 13. Any other input?
Patrick, I would also agree with the 13.
Yeah.
Okay, we seem to have agreed with 13 unless someone's opposed. Go forward with that.
All right. The sixth and final evaluation criterion is the property's relationship to the surrounding area. The subject property is situated on part of what was formerly lot number 2 of the 1844 subdivision of George A.S. Crichton's lands, also known as Crichton's Field, and it's part of the oldest cohort of homes in Crichton's Field. The subject property also has a long history serving as middle and working class rental housing and is thus emblematic of the historic character of the Crichton's Field neighborhood. Most buildings in this area range between 1.5 and 3 stories, with some taller buildings along Godgen Street. 2096 Crichton Street is in proximity to 4 other registered heritage properties, namely the Mayflower Factory, Bower Terrace, Charles Fairbanks House, and Hunter Forbes House, as well as many contributing unregistered heritage properties throughout the Crichton's Field subdivision. 2096 Crichton Street stands out amongst the surrounding contributing unregistered heritage buildings along Crichton Street for its high heritage integrity and for its particularly ornate expression of the Scottish vernacular style as applied to a modestly sized home. Given its age with respect to the creation of the subdivision, its high heritage integrity, its well-executed Scottish vernacular style, its proximity to other registered heritage properties, and finally, the surrounding density of contributing unregistered heritage properties, the subject property is considered a valuable asset to the surrounding area, and staff recommend a score between 6 and 10 points.
Get any input from the committee? I would think a 9, but that's my personal feeling.
An 8.
Okay, 8, okay. Anyone else?
I would go with a 9.
My instinct was for 9 as well.
Well, let's go with 9.
It's pulling together a neighborhood there. You have homes that have been modernized, but still are recognizably heritage-based. And then you're beginning to build a collection of registered properties.
It does seem like it's a keystone to it. We'll look with a
Yes.
9 then. So I think we've crossed the 50 threshold.
They're at 67, they're at 67, I believe.
Yes, the
67. Oh,
total
good.
is
Someone's-
67.
Someone's keeping count. Good. Okay, so the motion is that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council set a date for Heritage hearing to consider the inclusion of the property subject of the subject property, in the Registry of Heritage Property for HRM. And 2, approve the request to include 2096 Creighton Street, Halifax, in the Registry of Heritage Property for the Halifax Regional Municipality, as shown on map 1 for the staff report dated today, as a municipal heritage property under the Heritage Property Act. Do I have a mover?
I will so move, Lois.
Thank you, Lois. And a seconder?
Aye, Azuka. I second.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. Thank you. It's quite interesting.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is added items, and we have the request for a live meeting. And I'm just opening the floor for that for input from the committee. How do people feel?
I got no problem. The only issue would be is which date you want to pick. They're usually held at City Hall, so you got to make sure Halifax City Hall is usually held in the Halifax room.
Yeah.
Make sure that's available for one of those dates that you're looking for, and the clerk has to set up whatever recording information they require. Plus, we have the audiovisual capacity in there for the staff to show the report. So
yes, yeah. Is anyone in the committee opposed to having a live meeting? So perhaps what we can do is leave that with Dorothy to match up availability of the room and staffing with our meeting schedule, and then get back to us.
Something that I just might highlight as a consideration here is, and maybe staff can comment on this, is my understanding is that there's not the capacity at HRM right now to record meetings that are held live. That's what I've heard about other committee meetings. And so just in terms of the accessibility of this meeting as being recorded and available kind of in perpetuity, that is something that's impacted by having a live meeting. So I just thought it'd be important for the committee members to sort of know about that.
That might be new, because when we were doing Point Pleasant Park advisory meetings, they were recorded. But again, that was pre-pandemic.
If you would like to have an in-person meeting, Harbor East Chamber, you're able to webcast there. Yes.
I was going to suggest that, but what's the amount of people in our committee? I'm just kind of wondering what the seating capacity over there is. I think it's room for 9 or 7.
Or more than that.
Let me double check.
5.
11. I think there are
11.
11 chairs.
Okay. Is that enough for our committee?
We got 16 here.
No, but the staff.
We have 12 committee members, and then with staff, so about like 16. Yeah.
Yeah, because the staff would use the gallery seats as well as the presentation stand. So I think we could probably accommodate at the Marine Drive, at the Harbor East Marine Drive Community Council meeting in Albany. So I think we can probably hold it there, and that would have the recording capacity as well.
Okay. So Dorothy, what we're suggesting is that you'll see what the availability is there.
Yes, I'll have to double check with the meeting dates for the committee, and then as well as the availability at the space, and then I will confirm.
Okay.
Just to double check, is everyone okay with any day we choose on the schedule?
Dorothy, it's Lois speaking. I'm wondering if some people may not be comfortable with a live meeting at this time of year, late spring or early fall, one of those meetings before we hit high summer. People are more comfortable going out and mingling as the weather improves.
Mhm.
It also gives you time, Dorothy, to plan.
Mhm.
Yes, it's I'm thinking, yes, just like you said, I wanted to add it that it will be better when the weather is warmer.
Yes.
Maybe, yes, so that it will be easy. People will feel more eager to go out than when it is colder, and when, just like you said to Lois, it will give more time for people to plan it into their calendar if they have to leave, because if you are working from home or from your office, you can always have two things doing at the same time. But if you have to leave, then you have to leave maybe 1 hour before time or 30 minutes before time, and then that's the only thing you will do. So
Okay, so
I support you on
currently
that.
with the approved meeting schedule, we have a meeting for in the summer months. It's June 14th, July 26th if required, August 23rd if required, and September 27th.
Yes, those days are good.
Okay.
If possible, could we avoid July 26th? I have a commitment for the entire month of July at St. Mary's.
Okay.
Book solid there. Thank you.
I think this is an excellent idea. It's the one thing that Zoom is a wonderful tool, but bringing everyone together once to meet and discuss in a real group setting. So thank you. This is excellent.
Thank you very much.
Another step in going back to normal.
Yes.
Okay, so we've cleared that item of business. The next meeting date is April the 26th, 2023. And we just need a mover for adjournment.
I will so move, Lois.
Thank you, Lois. Well, thank you, everyone. Nice productive meeting. And we'll all gather again on Zoom on April 26th. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you. Have a nice day. It's a
Yes.
sunny day. Enjoy
Yes,
the sun while it
it's
lasts.
still nice out.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Okay.